She thought the human was ridiculous until her mother told her the truth. To anyone visiting from another planet, it was a marvel of engineering, a place where countless species coexisted, trading goods, knowledge, and culture. Lyra, a young Zelari scientist, stood at the observation deck, her long, silver hair brushing against her shoulders. Her violet eyes scanned the station below, her expression one of quiet judgment. She had spent all her life in the company of her kind, a species known across the galaxy for their intelligence, discipline, and perfect control over emotion. To Lyra, the other beings on the station were chaotic. And then she saw him. A human, he was not remarkable in appearance. Medium height, messy brown hair, eyes that seemed almost too bright for his tired face. He moved quickly but without grace, knocking over a small crate as he entered the engineering bay. Lyra's first thought was that he would surely fail at whatever task he was attempting. "I can't believe they let him near the systems," she muttered under her breath, her voice barely audible to herself. "A human here?" Her companion, a fellow Zelari named Tiren, glanced at her. "Careful, Lyra. Mockery of other species is unwise." Lyra waved him off, smirking. "I am simply observing reality. The human looks ridiculous." From her vantage point, she could see the human trying to interface with the station's energy core. His fingers danced over the controls in a way that seemed random, almost reckless. Every so often, he muttered something under his breath in a language that was almost musical but foreign. Sparks flew from the panel in front of him, and Lyra bit back a laugh. Tiren shook his head, but Lyra could not resist. "Watch this," she whispered. "He will fail." "It is inevitable." The human paused, scratching his head, and then pressed a few more buttons. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, unexpectedly, the lights in the bay brightened and the energy core hummed steadily, stabilizing the systems. Lyra blinked. That shouldn't have worked," she said, disbelief creeping into her voice. Tiren gave a small smile. "Humans are unpredictable, perhaps that is why." Lyra crossed her arms, frowning. Unpredictable is not the same as intelligent. She refused to admit it, but a small part of her felt a spark of curiosity. How had he done it? It looked like luck, not skill. And yet, the energy core was functioning perfectly. As the human straightened and wiped his hands on a rag, he glanced around. Lyra noticed his posture, not proud, not arrogant, just tired but satisfied. He moved as if he belonged, even in a place that should have been alien to him. Lyra turned away, trying to hide her growing interest. She did not want to care about a human. Humans were primitive, emotional, and foolish. That was what she had been taught. And yet this one had done what even the most experienced Zelari engineers might have struggled to achieve. Her mother, Professor Elira, appeared at her side. She was taller than Lyra, her presence commanding but calm. "Lyra," she said softly, "you've been watching him?" Lyra nodded, unable to hide the faint flush on her cheeks. He is ridiculous, and yet somehow he fixed the system." Professor Elira's eyes twinkled. "Yes. Humans often seem ridiculous, but never forget, Lyra, appearances can be deceiving." Lyra frowned. "Deceiving? He simply got lucky." "Luck is one word," her mother said, "but there is also persistence, creativity, and adaptability. All humans possess these qualities in ways we often underestimate." Lyra shook her head. "I doubt it." Her mother only smiled and walked away, leaving Lyra with a mind buzzing with confusion. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Lyra observed the human from afar. She noticed the way he interacted with other species, careful, polite, yet direct. She saw him improvise when equipment failed, using tools in ways that no manual suggested. She saw him calm frightened workers and diffuse tense situations with words rather than authority. And still she told herself he was ridiculous. That evening, as Lyra returned to her quarters, a sudden alert flashed across the station's communication panel. "Security breach in Docking Bay 3, the announcement blared. "Unauthorized drone detected. Immediate response required." Lyra's heart raced. Rogue AI drones were dangerous, fast, unpredictable, and lethal. She knew that the Zelari security teams would handle it methodically, calculating every step before moving. But she noticed something interesting. Humans were already mobilizing. Among them was the same man she had watched earlier, Captain Eli Harper. Lyra frowned. He looked unprepared, wearing only a standard engineer's jumpsuit. No heavy armor, no advanced weapons. Just a toolkit and his crew of humans. He was walking directly toward danger. "This is impossible," Lyra muttered. "He should not survive this." Yet, as she observed, Eli and his team moved with a strange confidence. They worked quickly, assessing the situation on the fly. Drones swarmed the docking bay, attacking with mechanical precision. Eli dodged, rolled, and used the environment to his advantage. He rewired a deactivated crane to block drones, guided his team to safety, and even improvised new tools from spare parts. Lyra's eyes widened. Every time she expected failure, something unexpected happened. Eli's methods were chaotic, unstructured, but effective. For the first time, Lyra felt a flicker of doubt. Perhaps her judgment had been premature. Perhaps humans were not as simple as she had believed. Still, she turned away, unwilling to admit it aloud. She had grown up hearing that humans were inferior. How could one human prove all of that wrong? When the emergency was finally over, the docking bay quieted. The rogue drones had been contained with minimal damage. Eli Harper's crew cheered quietly, exhausted but victorious. Lyra watched from above, silent and conflicted. Her mother appeared beside her once more. "Lyra," she said gently, "do you see now? It is not just luck. Humans have a resilience and adaptability that our species often lacks. They can act in ways that defy our logic, yet succeed where logic alone would fail." Lyra bit her lip, staring down at the human. I still don't understand." Her mother placed a hand on her shoulder. "You will, child. Observing is the first step. Respecting comes next. And one day you may work alongside them, learning what they can teach us." Lyra nodded slowly, her mind swirling with questions. She had thought the human was foolish, ridiculous even. And yet he had survived, adapted, and succeeded in ways she could not predict. That night she could not sleep. She kept picturing Eli Harper, the way he moved, the way he solved problems without hesitation. Every time she tried to dismiss it as luck, she remembered how precise and deliberate his actions had been, despite seeming random. For the first time in her life, Lyra realized that being ridiculous and being powerful were not opposites. Sometimes what seemed like foolishness was the mask of extraordinary skill, and deep down, a tiny spark of curiosity ignited in her. Perhaps this human was worth watching. The station's corridors were quieter than usual the morning after the drone attack. Lights flickered slightly, as if still recovering from the previous night's chaos. Lyra walked along the polished metal walkway, her mind buzzing with thoughts about the human, Captain Eli Harper. She had spent all her life believing humans were clumsy, emotional, and inferior to the Zelari. And yet the events in the docking bay had challenged everything she knew. She could not stop thinking about him, the way he acted, the way he improvised, the way he survived. Lyra rounded a corner and nearly bumped into her mother, Professor Elira, who was walking with a calm but urgent pace. Her long silver robes brushed the floor, and her eyes held a seriousness that made Lyra pause. "Mother," Lyra said, hesitating, I still do not understand." "How did a human do what our best engineers could not?" Professor Elira stopped and looked at her daughter, her gaze steady and thoughtful. "Lyra," she said softly, "you saw only part of it. What you call luck, what you call foolishness, is only one side of the coin. Humans are not like us. They think differently, they feel differently, and sometimes those differences give them an advantage." Lyra frowned. "An advantage? How can clumsiness and disorganization be an advantage?" Her mother smiled, a small, knowing smile. "Because, Lyra, humans are unpredictable. They do not follow rigid rules the way we do. Their minds can twist and turn in ways our logic cannot. Where we calculate every step, they act instinctively. Where we fear failure, they try anyway. And in a universe that is unpredictable, that is invaluable." Lyra crossed her arms, still unconvinced. "I do not see it. They are messy. Their ways are inefficient. If I tried what they did, I would fail." Professor Elira studied her daughter carefully. "Exactly. You are trained to avoid failure at all costs. Humans are not. They accept it, learn from it, and continue. That makes them resilient." Lyra opened her mouth to argue, but found herself unable to respond. Her mother's words, though simple, carried weight. They made her wonder, could humans really be as capable as her mother suggested? Before Lyra could respond, the station's alert system sounded again. Another breach, this time in the outer cargo bays. Automated defense systems were struggling to contain a swarm of rogue drones that had somehow bypassed the station's main shields. Lyra's heart raced. She knew the danger. These drones were fast, smart, and capable of destroying sections of the station if left unchecked. She was about to call the Zelari security team when she noticed movement from the other side of the corridor. Eli Harper was already on the move. He strode through the bustling station with confidence, ignoring the chaos around him. His crew followed closely, carrying makeshift shields and tools they had improvised into weapons. Eli's expression was calm but focused. There was no hesitation, no doubt, only determination. Lyra felt a strange mix of fear and admiration. How could someone so unarmed and seemingly ordinary face such danger? Her mother caught her gaze and nodded slightly. Watch, learn, do not judge too quickly. Lyra took a deep breath and followed from a safe distance, her eyes fixed on the human. Eli entered the outer cargo bay, where the rogue drones had already begun damaging crates and machinery. Sparks flew as the drones moved with precise coordination, attacking anything that resisted them. Humans would usually panic in such situations, but Eli's team moved with unusual harmony. He shouted instructions, and the humans responded immediately. They set up barriers using crates and equipment, herding the drones into specific paths. Eli climbed a stack of containers, flipping switches and rerouting power to disable the drone's navigation systems. Lyra's jaw dropped. Every time she expected failure, Eli found a way to adapt, to turn what looked like chaos into control. She whispered to herself, How is he doing this? Her mother's voice was calm beside her. Observation is key, Lyra. You see, humans do not rely solely on logic. They rely on instinct, intuition, and creativity. What seems messy to you is actually highly adaptive problem-solving. Lyra studied the scene carefully. Eli moved like a conductor, directing his crew with gestures and words. One human used a tool to short-circuit a drone, another guided a malfunctioning transport system to block the attackers, and Eli coordinated every step. Despite the apparent randomness, it worked. The drones were being neutralized one by one. Lyra's mind raced. If humans are so unpredictable, how can we plan for them in our systems? She asked quietly. Her mother smiled again. We cannot, and that is why they are valuable. Their unpredictability allows them to survive where we might fail. They are not bound by the same rules. That is a gift. Lyra had never considered this before. Her entire education emphasized order, calculation, and control. The idea that unpredictability could be a strength was foreign and almost frightening. Suddenly, one of the rogue drones broke through the human defenses, heading straight toward Eli. He did not flinch. Instead, he grabbed a nearby pipe, swung it at the drone, and sent it crashing into a crate. The impact caused a chain reaction, knocking several other drones off balance. Lyra's eyes widened. She could not deny it anymore. The human was skilled, not by her standards, not by Zelari standards, but by his own. He adapted, improvised, and succeeded. When the last drone was disabled, Eli and his team were covered in sweat and grime, their clothes torn and dirty, but they were victorious. He stood in the middle of the cargo bay, catching his breath, yet already scanning for the next problem. Lyra felt a strange sensation in her chest. Respect. She had never respected a human before, and yet she could not deny the truth. This human had done what many Zelari engineers could not. Her mother turned to her. Do you understand now, Lyra? This is why I warned you not to judge too quickly. Humans are messy, emotional, and often appear foolish, but beneath that, they are strong, adaptable, and courageous. Lyra shook her head slowly, trying to process it all. I think I understand, Mother, but it is hard. I was certain humans were inferior. Professor Elira placed a hand on Lyra's shoulder. Being certain is dangerous, Lyra. The universe does not favor certainty. It favors adaptability, creativity, and courage, the very traits humans excel at. One day you may see their value not just in survival, but in shaping the future. Lyra nodded quietly, her thoughts still on Eli Harper. He had been ridiculous, clumsy even, and yet he had saved lives, protected the station, and outperformed expectation. The contrast was confusing but exciting. As they walked away, Lyra noticed Eli talking to a group of Zelari engineers. He smiled politely, gesturing as he explained what he had done. He did not boast, did not act superior. He simply shared knowledge calmly and clearly, as if helping others was more important than his own glory. Lyra felt another spark of curiosity. Could she learn from him? Could humans, so different from her, teach her something she had never imagined? Her mother seemed to read her thoughts. Observation is the first step, Lyra. The next step is understanding, and understanding leads to respect. Remember this. For the rest of the day, Lyra could not focus on her work. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Eli in the cargo bay, moving with confidence, improvising in ways she could not predict. Her mind replayed his actions over and over. By evening, she returned to the observation deck, staring out at the black expanse of space. Stars twinkled silently, indifferent to the events below. Lyra thought about her life, her beliefs, and the teachings she had always trusted. And she realized something. The universe was bigger, stranger, and more unpredictable than she had ever imagined. And in that unpredictability, humans had a place, not just as survivors, but as something more, something extraordinary. Lyra did not yet know what that meant for her, or for the station, or for the galaxy. But one thing was clear: she could no longer dismiss humans as foolish or weak. And one human in particular had captured her attention in a way no Zelari ever had. She whispered softly, almost to herself, "Perhaps I was wrong about them." And for the first time, she looked forward to seeing what Eli Harper would do next. The next morning, the station buzzed with activity. Repairs from the previous night's drone attack were still underway. Zelari engineers moved with precision, recalibrating systems and restoring energy flow. Lyra walked among them, her eyes constantly drawn to the human, Captain Eli Harper. He was already at work in the main engineering bay, kneeling beside a damaged power conduit. His movements were quick but careful, his fingers flying over wires and panels as if the entire system spoke to him directly. Lyra felt a strange tension in her chest. She had spent her life studying logic, science, and perfect order. And yet watching Eli work made her question everything. "He's different," she admitted quietly to herself. Her mother, Professor Elira, appeared at her side as she often did. "Different, yes," she said, "but that difference is important. You must pay attention." Lyra frowned. "But mother, he seems careless sometimes. He doesn't follow the protocols we would use. He improvises. Isn't that dangerous?" Professor Elira nodded. "It would be if it were random, but humans are not random. Their instincts guide them in ways we cannot always measure. What seems like carelessness is often an ability to adapt quickly to change." Before Lyra could respond, a new alarm sounded throughout the station. This time, the alert was more serious. A massive meteor shower was approaching the outer perimeter, threatening docking bays, storage areas, and parts of the station's structural support. Automated defenses could handle minor impacts, but this storm was large, irregular, and moving faster than predicted. Lyra's eyes widened. She had seen simulations of meteor strikes in training, and she knew the danger. Even a small miscalculation could destroy critical systems. The Zelari engineers began their standard emergency protocols, moving with precision and focus, following every calculation perfectly. Lyra watched, her mind racing. And then she saw Eli. He did not pause. He ran to the nearest control panel, assessed the damage, and immediately began improvising. He disconnected damaged circuits, rerouted energy, and coordinated the movement of large cargo crates to absorb potential impacts. Lyra felt a flicker of disbelief. Where her species relied on calculation and careful planning, Eli acted instinctively, making decisions in the moment that she could not have predicted. One of the automated defense drones malfunctioned, spinning out of control and threatening to strike nearby humans. Eli did not panic. He grabbed a magnetic tool, redirected the drone safely into a storage bay, and kept moving. Lyra's mouth opened slightly in awe. How does he do that?" she whispered. Her mother's voice was calm, almost amused. "Adaptability, Lyra. Humans excel at it. They can change course instantly, adjust to unforeseen events, and make the impossible possible." The meteor shower hit in waves, each strike threatening to tear apart the station's hull. The Zelari engineers followed their standard calculations, moving slowly and precisely. Many areas were temporarily abandoned because the systems could not respond fast enough. Eli and his team, however, moved with a different energy. They climbed over obstacles, guided one another, and improvised barriers using anything available. He turned storage crates into shields, rerouted energy through emergency conduits, and even used a maintenance drone to block falling debris. Every move was unorthodox, unpredictable, and yet effective. Lyra's mind raced. She had been taught that precision and planning were the keys to success. Yet here was a human, using intuition, creativity, and courage, achieving results she had never imagined possible. One particularly large meteor struck a section near the station's energy hub. The Zelari engineers hesitated, waiting for calculated safety measures. Eli did not. He sprinted toward the damage, assessing it as he ran. He pulled a damaged panel aside, redirected energy to prevent overload, and guided his team to reinforce the area with whatever materials were at hand. The energy hub stabilized. Systems flickered but remained operational. Lyra's heart pounded. He saved it, she whispered. He actually saved it. Professor Elira placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder. Do you see now, Lyra? This is what I meant. Humans are unpredictable, yes, but in that unpredictability lies their strength. They can succeed where calculation alone might fail. Lyra watched Eli move to the next section of the station. His team followed, trusting his judgment implicitly. Every obstacle was met with an unconventional solution, yet everything worked. It was almost like watching a dance, chaotic to the untrained eye but perfectly synchronized. She realized something else. Eli's strength was not in his knowledge alone. He was not the most technically skilled human she had seen. His strength lay in his ability to adapt, to see possibilities where others saw only obstacles, and to act decisively when hesitation could mean failure. Lyra felt a mixture of admiration and frustration. She wanted to analyze his methods, to understand exactly why he succeeded, but his actions were so instinctive, so human, that it was impossible to predict. As the final meteor passed, Eli's team began assessing the station for damage. The humans were tired, their clothes torn, but their spirits were high. Eli moved calmly among them, giving instructions, ensuring everyone was safe and checking on the station's critical systems. Lyra noticed something that surprised her. Eli did not take credit for their success. He did not boast. He did not even seem proud. He simply did what needed to be done and then moved to the next challenge. Her mother's voice broke her thoughts. Do you understand why I said humans are remarkable, Lyra? Lyra nodded slowly. Yes, I think I do, but it is strange. They are so different. How can someone so ordinary in appearance accomplish things that seem impossible? Professor Elira smiled. Because humans measure ability differently. They measure by results, not method. They measure by courage, by adaptability, by willingness to try when the outcome is uncertain. That is a form of intelligence we must not underestimate. Lyra watched Eli for a few more moments, her mind racing. She had thought the human was ridiculous. She had laughed at his clumsiness, at his apparent disregard for protocol. But now she could see the truth. His actions were not foolish. They were extraordinary. And more than that, she felt a spark of respect, a deep, unexpected respect for someone she had once considered beneath her notice. As the station returned to normal operations, Lyra approached her mother. "Mother, can humans really teach us something?" she asked quietly. Professor Elira nodded. Yes, Lyra, they can teach us many things: patience, resilience, creativity, courage, and sometimes they can teach us what it means to truly face the unknown without fear. Lyra felt a shiver of excitement. The human, Eli Harper, had opened a door in her mind that she had never noticed before. A door to possibilities beyond strict rules, beyond rigid logic, beyond what she had always considered the only way to succeed. She did not yet know what lay beyond that door. But one thing was certain. She would watch, she would learn, and perhaps, one day, she would understand the human advantage for herself. That evening, as Lyra gazed out at the stars from the observation deck, she thought about the humans she had seen. Fragile in appearance, unpredictable in action, yet capable of astonishing feats. She thought about Eli Harper and the spark of courage and ingenuity that seemed to radiate from him without effort. Lyra whispered softly, almost to herself, "Perhaps humans are not so simple after all." And for the first time, she felt a sense of anticipation. The universe was vast, dangerous, and unpredictable. And if humans could thrive in that chaos, perhaps they were the key to something far greater than she had ever imagined. For now, though, she would watch. She would observe. She would try to understand the human advantage. And in the quiet of Orion's reach, under the cold light of distant stars, Lyra felt a growing sense of wonder. Perhaps the human she had once thought ridiculous would change everything she had ever believed. And for the first time, she did not laugh at the thought. The following day dawned with an unusual tension on Orion's reach. A minor system glitch had been detected in the station's outer shield network, but sensors indicated that the disturbance could expand rapidly if left unchecked. Zelari engineers immediately activated emergency protocols, running through their meticulously calculated procedures. Lyra, however, could not focus on the technical details. Her mind was on Eli Harper. She had spent the past 24 hours replaying his actions in her mind. The way he moved, the way he solved problems in ways no Zelari could have predicted. She felt a mix of frustration and awe. Finally, she found herself walking toward her mother, Professor Elira. The elder Zelari was in the lab, examining sensor readings. Her calm presence seemed to anchor the chaos around her. "Mother," Lyra said, her voice hesitant, I still do not understand. How can humans do these things? How can one person, this Eli Harper, be so capable?" Professor Elira looked up, her gaze gentle but firm. "Lyra, humans measure success differently. We rely on precision, calculation, and control. Humans rely on flexibility, intuition, and courage. What you see as luck is often careful observation, quick thinking, and the willingness to act when others hesitate." Lyra frowned. "But it is strange. He improvises, he ignores protocols, and yet everything works. How is that possible?" Her mother smiled. "Because humans are not bound by fear of failure. They accept mistakes, learn instantly, and adapt. That is why they survive. That is why they thrive. That is why I told you not to judge them too quickly." Lyra's thoughts were interrupted by another alarm, a warning from the outer shield network. The glitch had worsened. The station's outer perimeter was destabilizing, and if the shields failed, the docking bays could be destroyed. Lyra's stomach tightened. This was serious. The Zelari engineers immediately began recalculating, following standard procedures. Every step was deliberate and precise, but slow. The system was failing faster than predicted. From her observation point, Lyra saw Eli Harper approach. He carried nothing but a portable diagnostic unit, a few tools, and the calm determination that had already become familiar to her. Lyra could not help herself. She muttered under her breath, "He will fail. He cannot possibly fix this in time." Her mother's voice was soft but firm. "Do not be so certain, Lyra. Humans have ways we cannot predict." Eli began assessing the damaged shields. He touched panels, flipped switches, and rerouted circuits with instinctive precision. Unlike the Zelari engineers who followed calculations step by step, Eli acted fluidly, thinking 3 moves ahead without appearing to plan at all. Lyra watched, her disbelief growing. One of the shield generators began to overload, sparks flying dangerously close to sensitive equipment. Without hesitation, Eli grabbed a maintenance drone, redirected it toward the generator, and used it to stabilize the system temporarily. Lyra's eyes widened. She had never seen anything like it. The Zelari would have calculated the risk first, step by step, but Eli acted immediately and correctly, relying on intuition rather than strict logic. A member of Eli's team hesitated, unsure of the next step. Eli placed a hand on their shoulder. "Trust your instincts," he said calmly. "Do what makes sense in the moment. I'll guide you." The human nodded and acted. Within moments, the generator stabilized. Another section of the shield flickered, threatening to fail entirely. Eli assessed the problem, grabbed nearby tools, and improvised a solution using spare parts that no Zelari engineer would have considered. Lyra's mind reeled. She had believed humans were clumsy, emotional, and illogical. But here, before her eyes, one human was saving the station in ways that no calculation could have predicted. Her mother observed her closely. "Do you see now, Lyra? This is what I meant when I said humans are remarkable. They are not constrained by the same rules we follow. Their creativity and courage allow them to act when others hesitate. That is their advantage." Lyra shook her head slowly. "It is incredible. I still cannot understand it fully. He seems ordinary and yet extraordinary." Professor Elira nodded. "Extraordinary does not always mean complex. Sometimes it means daring, adaptability, and the willingness to act when all else seems impossible." Eli's team worked tirelessly under his direction. They moved as a unit, yet each action was guided by human intuition and flexibility. Lyra realized that what she had once called chaos was actually a different kind of order, one that she had never been taught to recognize. The shield network stabilized, just as a final surge of energy threatened to overload the system. Eli acted instantly, rerouting power through emergency conduits and stabilizing the surge before it caused catastrophic damage. The station was safe. Lyra felt a rush of emotion she could not name. Relief, admiration, and an unexpected sense of humility. She had been certain humans were weak. Now she saw that strength came in forms she had never imagined. Her mother placed a hand on her shoulder. Lyra, do you understand why I respect humans? It is not because they are like us or because they follow the rules. It is because they embrace the unknown, adapt, and act with courage. Lyra nodded slowly. I think I understand, but it is hard to accept. I was so certain humans were inferior. Professor Elira smiled gently. Certainty can blind us. Observation opens the mind. Respect comes after understanding. And sometimes that respect changes the way we see the universe. Lyra looked down at Eli, who was now checking his team and the systems for any remaining damage. He smiled quietly, speaking words of encouragement to each member. There was no arrogance in him, no need for recognition, just a quiet strength that drew people to trust him. Lyra realized that the human she had once thought ridiculous was, in fact, extraordinary. Not in the ways her people measured intelligence, but in ways that mattered in the real world: adaptability, courage, ingenuity, and resilience. Her mother spoke again. Remember, Lyra, humans have survived against impossible odds, not because they are flawless, but because they are willing to face challenges and adapt. That is why they are respected, even feared across the galaxy, and that is why you must never dismiss them again. Lyra absorbed the words. For the first time, she felt a deep respect for a species she had been taught to look down upon. And for the first time, she wondered if she herself could learn from them, not as a superior observer, but as a student willing to grow. Eli looked up at the observation deck, where Lyra had been silently watching. Their eyes met for a brief moment, and she saw something unexpected, a spark of recognition, perhaps understanding. He did not know her name, yet she felt that he had already noticed her curiosity. Lyra turned away, her mind racing. She had thought the human was foolish, reckless, and clumsy. Now she knew that what she had called foolishness was something else entirely. It was creativity, courage, and the ability to thrive in chaos. For the first time, Lyra felt a sense of excitement. The universe was unpredictable, full of dangers and surprises, and humans were uniquely equipped to face it. She whispered softly to herself, I thought he was ridiculous, but he is remarkable. Professor Elira, watching her daughter, smiled quietly. Yes, Lyra, and one day you will understand fully. Humans are not what they seem. They are capable of more than we imagine, and in that capability there is much to learn. Lyra nodded, feeling a mix of awe and determination. She would watch, she would learn, and she would try to understand the human advantage. And perhaps one day she would even work alongside Eli Harper, learning what her own people could never teach her. As the station quieted and normal operations resumed, Lyra realized something profound. Respect was not given lightly. It was earned. And Eli Harper, in his calm, unassuming way, had earned it. For the first time, Lyra looked forward to the next challenge, the next mission, and the next opportunity to witness the human spirit in action. She had been certain humans were inferior. Now she knew the truth. Humans were extraordinary in ways that no Zelari calculation could measure. And that realization changed everything. The station had returned to its normal rhythm, but the memory of the meteor storm and the rogue drones lingered in Lyra's mind. She walked through Orion's Reach with careful steps, yet her thoughts were elsewhere, on the humans, and especially on Captain Eli Harper. For days she had observed him quietly, noting the way he moved among his crew, how he spoke calmly in crises, how he solved problems without hesitation. Every action revealed not just skill, but courage, creativity, and an instinctive understanding of people and situations. Lyra realized she had been wrong. She had thought humans were clumsy, reckless, and illogical. But Eli had shown her a new kind of strength, one she had never studied in school or seen in Zelari engineering manuals. Her mother, Professor Elira, noticed Lyra's thoughtful silence as they walked through the corridor. You have been watching him closely, she said softly. Lyra nodded. Yes, Mother, I think I understand now. Humans are not what I believed them to be. They are extraordinary. Professor Elira smiled. It took you time, but yes, and what you feel now, respect, curiosity, even admiration, is the first step. Observation alone is not enough. Understanding comes when you see them in action and recognize the value they bring. Lyra thought about the past few days, the chaos, the challenges, the moments when Eli's quick thinking had saved the station. He does things we would never think of, she admitted. He improvises, adapts, and acts when others hesitate, and somehow it always works. Yes, her mother said, That is the human advantage. They survive where logic alone might fail. They adapt where others freeze, and they inspire others by their courage and creativity. Lyra felt a flutter of excitement. For the first time, she wanted to learn to understand, not as a superior Zelari observing a primitive species, but as someone willing to grow. The alert system chimed again, but this time it was not a warning. It was a request for assistance. A nearby cargo vessel had encountered a technical failure while docking. The ship was drifting dangerously close to the station, and without immediate action, it could collide with the outer hull. The Zelari engineers began their standard procedure, calculating trajectories, preparing clamps, and running through safety checks. Every movement was precise, deliberate, and slow. Eli Harper did not hesitate. He grabbed a portable console, activated a communication link to the ship, and began giving instructions. He coordinated his team while simultaneously analyzing the situation in real time. Lyra watched, her heart pounding. She knew that following standard procedure could take minutes, but Eli moved faster, trusting his instincts, adapting his plans as new variables emerged. The cargo vessel swayed dangerously, and a section of the station's outer docking arm shook from the impact. Eli acted immediately, using tools and spare equipment to stabilize the arm while guiding the crew of the ship to correct its course. One of the human crew members panicked, unsure how to respond to the shifting ship. Eli placed a hand on their shoulder. "Focus. You know what to do, trust yourself, I've got the rest," he said calmly. Lyra felt her chest tighten. Every time she thought she understood what humans were capable of, Eli proved her wrong again. It was not just skill, it was leadership, courage, and adaptability. The vessel finally aligned safely with the docking bay. Systems engaged, clamps locked, and the ship settled without incident. Eli and his team sighed in relief, their clothes smudged with grease and sweat, but their expressions calm and focused. Lyra took a step forward, almost unconsciously. She wanted to see him up close, to understand how one human could accomplish so much in a situation that seemed impossible. Her mother noticed her movement. "Patience, Lyra. Observation is important, but respect comes from understanding, not intrusion." Lyra nodded. She remained at a distance, studying him carefully. Eli spoke with his crew, encouraging them, checking for injuries, and ensuring that all systems were operational. There was no arrogance in him, no need to boast, just calm, decisive action. Lyra realized that this was something she had never experienced in her own people. Zelari took pride in precision and knowledge, but humans took pride in results, in action, in the courage to try when failure seemed likely. That evening, the observation deck was quiet. Lyra stood alone, looking out at the stars. She thought about the humans she had seen, fragile in appearance but capable of extraordinary things. She thought about Eli Harper, who had faced danger repeatedly, never faltering, never losing hope. Her mother joined her, standing silently for a moment. "You have changed," she said softly. Lyra nodded. "Yes, Mother, I thought humans were foolish, but I understand now. Their courage, adaptability, and creativity, it is unlike anything I have ever seen." Professor Elira placed a hand on Lyra's shoulder. "And that understanding is only the beginning. Humans can teach us much if we are willing to learn." Lyra's thoughts turned inward. Could she learn from Eli? Could she embrace a new way of thinking, combining her Zelari precision with the human ability to improvise and adapt? The idea was exciting, even frightening. The next morning, Lyra approached the engineering bay. Eli Harper was there, guiding a human technician as they repaired a damaged docking mechanism. Lyra watched silently. He moved with confidence, yet without arrogance. He explained solutions simply, ensuring that everyone understood. She stepped forward, her voice steady. "Captain Harper," she said. He looked up, surprised but calm. "Yes," he asked, his tone polite. I want to learn from you," Lyra said. "Not as a superior observing a human, but as someone willing to understand your methods. I want to see how you solve problems and adapt to challenges." Eli studied her for a moment, then nodded. "I would be glad to show you. Adaptability comes from practice, observation, and willingness to try. If you are willing to learn, I can teach you." Lyra felt a rush of excitement. She had never imagined herself saying these words to a human, yet here she was, eager to learn. Over the next several days, Lyra worked alongside Eli. She observed how he approached problems, how he made decisions quickly, how he guided his team. She learned to trust intuition, to act decisively, and to adapt when things did not go as planned. She began to see the human advantage in action, how courage, creativity, and adaptability could complement her Zelari training. Slowly, she started to integrate those lessons into her own work. Professor Elira observed quietly, pleased with her daughter's progress. "Do you understand now, Lyra?" she asked one evening. Lyra nodded. "Yes, Mother, humans are not inferior, they are extraordinary, and working with them, I feel like I am learning more than I ever have before." Her mother smiled. "Good. Respect, understanding, and collaboration. These are the keys to surviving and thriving in the universe. Remember that." The station continued its operations, but Lyra's world had changed. She no longer saw humans as foolish or ridiculous. She saw strength, courage, and ingenuity. And she knew that the galaxy would never underestimate humans again. As the stars twinkled outside Orion's reach, Lyra realized something profound. Humans, fragile in appearance, unpredictable in action, and fearless in spirit, could face challenges that even the most disciplined Zelari might hesitate to confront. And she was ready to follow, to learn, and to grow alongside them. Eli Harper glanced at her during a maintenance check. For the first time, Lyra smiled, not because of amusement, but because she felt a deep sense of respect and understanding. In his calm, decisive manner, he had shown her a new way to see the universe. Lyra whispered softly, almost to herself, "I thought he was ridiculous, but he is remarkable." And in that moment, she understood fully. Humanity was not about perfection, nor about flawless knowledge. It was about courage, adaptability, and the will to act when others would hesitate. Humans could survive, thrive, and even teach others to do the same. And Lyra knew that she would never see them, or the universe, the same way again. The station hummed quietly, the stars shone brightly, and somewhere in the corridors of Orion's reach, a human named Eli Harper continued his work, unaware that he had already changed the mind of a young Zelari forever.